In the dead of night, in a forgotten corner of a small village, a newborn baby cried into the rain, wrapped in nothing but an old shawl and placed quietly at the steps of a rundown shelter. She was left alone, unwanted, unclaimed, unseen. Her parents, drowning in poverty and fear, had convinced themselves this was mercy, that someone else could give her what they never could. They walked away, and so began the story of a girl the world tried to forget, that fate is stubborn, and hope has a habit of surviving. She was found by an old woman named Mama Ruth, who took her in with trembling hands and a heart still aching from her own losses. "We'll call her Hope," she said softly, holding the child close, "because that's what she gives me." Hope grew up poor, quiet, and curious. She asked questions no one could answer, stared at stars as if they held secrets, and read whatever scraps of paper or old books she could find. At school, she was the strange one, the girl with no real parents, the girl who never talked much, the one who wore second-hand shoes 3 sizes too big. But inside her, something fierce was growing, a quiet fire. When Mama Ruth fell ill, Hope would sit by her side night after night, learning how to comfort her, how to read symptoms, how to be present in someone's pain. It was in those long nights of worry and whispered prayers that her purpose was born. "I'm going to be a doctor," she whispered once into the dark, "so I can make people like her better again." Everyone laughed. A doctor? With no money? No family name? But Hope didn't flinch. While others doubted, she worked. She cleaned homes, washed dishes, and swept school floors just to pay for her books. She studied under candlelight when there was no power. She taught herself biology from water-damaged textbooks. And year after year, rejection after rejection, she kept going. Until one day an envelope arrived. Acceptance to medical school. The day she stepped into that white corridor was the first time she truly believed she belonged. She worked harder than anyone else. No shortcuts, no easy routes. She became the student professors remembered, the one who stayed late, asked too many questions, volunteered for everything, and eventually she became Dr. Hope Nwasu, the name now stitched proudly into her coat. Years later, she returned to her village, this time not as a forgotten child, but as the only doctor for miles. Her clinic was small, the lines were long, but the people believed in her. She healed, taught, encouraged. For the first time in her life, she was not invisible. She was needed. And then came the outbreak. A strange illness swept through the village. People collapsed. Children gasped for breath. The hospital in the city was overwhelmed. Doctors were in short supply. So Hope stood at the center of it all, organizing response teams, treating patients, giving comfort, fighting exhaustion. And one morning, 2 patients were carried to her clinic in critical condition. A man and a woman, both weak and fading fast. There was something familiar about them. The scar on the man's brow, the curve of the woman's lips. The past, buried deep for so long, returned in a sudden wave. They were her parents, the ones who had left her in the rain. She stared at them, heartbeat shaking. Her hands trembled, not with anger, but with choice. She could walk away, let them face what they had once let her face. But she didn't. She picked up her stethoscope, checked their pulses, and began the work she had trained her whole life to do. Not because they deserved it, but because she did. Hours passed. Treatments were given. Eventually, they opened their eyes. Who are you?" the woman asked weakly. Hope smiled softly. "I'm the girl you left behind," she whispered, "and the doctor who came back." They wept, not out of guilt alone, but because grace is heavier than punishment. She didn't seek revenge. She offered healing. She gave them what they could never give her: a second chance. Today, Dr. Hope Mwosu runs Second Hope Medical Center, where no one is ever turned away. Not for their past, not for their pain. Her story is one of scars that became strength, abandonment that became purpose, and love that chose to forgive. Because the strongest people aren't those who never fell, but those who rose and returned to lift others up. Abandoned, but not broken.